Today we're going to be creating a very basic 3D platformer. And a big part of 3D platformers, just like in my one here, Unaccessible, is what happens when you go out of bounds. So right here, we're actually already out of bounds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly down here into one of the death planes. And we're going to actually respawn back within inside the boundary of the level itself, right? So it's a really simple effect that we can do with a couple different scripts and some raycasts and some really good collision checking, utilizing a couple of different collision layers. So in Godot, we're going to create a new scene, main scene. It's a completely fresh new project. I'm going to save it into a folder called scenes. Main scene, there we go. So what we need is somewhere that's inbounds, somewhere that's out of bounds, and then an ability to, let's say, just jump off into the void and then respawn back inbounds, right? And then maybe some sort of challenge to jump over or something, I'm not sure. First, I'm going to get a couple textures in. Just created an images folder over here. I'm going to import these textures over here. Actually, I'm going to click on this first, and then I'm going to import these textures. All of these game files will be up on Patreon, by the way. So this is just literally a 2x2. We'll just make sure that it doesn't filter. Probably will, whatever. And then we're going to create the ground. So I'm going to just create a new CSG box. I'm going to move it down 0.5 meter, holding shift. And then we're just going to make it like 50 by 50. By 50, and then we can drag one of these on. So we'll go green because green is good. Exactly. We're going to go to material over here, change the UV1 to be like world triplanar. We can see it looks all dodgy still, so we're going to go down to the sampling and change that to nearest bitmap. There we go. Now we get like a nice grid texture, right? So we're going to have an area that's also out of bounds. I'm just going to grab these and move them both over to the middle here. 25, just so I can see them a little bit better. This geometry here, we're going to go make unique, but instead on the albedo, I'm going to drag over this orange, and that'll signal to us that it is bad. Orange, what's going on there? Alright, guess it doesn't like the orange. We'll put the blue in there then. Weird. Now for both of these we're going to need to enable the collision, but we're going to need to change the collision layers. So first we're going to go renaming them. I'm going to call this one world, and basically that means like within the boundary, right? And this one here we're going to go put on, usually what I like to do is if I've got like an alternate sort of layer, I'll put it underneath it. So let's say on like layer 5, right? We don't really need to worry about the collision mask because it's a static object, but we'll go here and then we'll rename this. So layer 5, we'll call it out of bounds, or OOB. If you want to get sneaky like that, because we're going to reserve like 2 for the player. Speaking of the player, we're going to go create a character body 3D, F2, call it player. Guess we get a little bit of it done here before we branch it off. So we've got the collision shape 3D, capsule shape 0.25 radius, 1.8, move it up by 0.9, and then we go create a mesh for it so we know where it is. Capsule 0.25, 1.8. Transform 0.9. So 0.9 is half of 1.8, and that's why we move it up that much, because now it is touching the ground. Perfect. Okay, so player here, we need to go set the collision layer to 2. So 2, we're going to call player. Now, as you see, because we don't have the mask set to 5, the player is just going to fall through this blue area. So we've also got to set the mask to 5 there. Now, if we go branch this off, so save branch as scene. Actually, maybe we won't do it yet. We'll get in a little raycast first. So I'll show you basically how the system works. So the raycast 3Ds that we create, we need to make sure there's more than one, because if it's right here, it might bug out a little bit. And if he's turned around, then it's not going to set it at all. So usually I create like 2 of these, right? So this Raycast 3D one here, I'll call ground detect. And is this forward or backward? I'm not sure. We'll go front for now, and then we'll actually run the game and we'll see what happens, because I don't know, we can just add a camera in. So it is the front. By the way, we're going to move this camera up by 1.6 in the Y direction, and that'll be our player. So ground detect front, we're going to control D to create another one, rename this one with F2, ground detect back, and instead of moving it around with the gizmo, I'm just going to go over to the Z, change it from negative 0.4 to 0.4, and now we've got 2 points where we'll be able to detect the ground, right? So speaking of detecting the ground, we need to make sure that it can detect the ground for both of them, right? Actually, no, not for both of them. This is actually what we care about, right? So what we don't want to detect, we don't have selected in the collision mask. So it's just, it basically, if my player is walking over here, right? Like I'll grab my player. If my player is walking over here, these raycasts aren't going to detect the ground. Well, it will here in the green, but it won't do it over here in the blue, right? And we're going to get a timer as well. And we'll probably put it on, we might put it on the world, we might put it on the player, but every like second or half second, we're just going to detect to see if we're on inbounds ground, right? So we're just going to quickly save this branch as a scene, call it player. We're going to open the scene by clicking that little button. We could go back here and save it as well, make sure it's saved. Cool, so now that we're in here, we can add a little bit of code. So we're going to click the button, make sure you have the template selected. Make sure when you save, you do it into a new folder called scripts, just to keep things neat and tidy. Going to go set up the input map. Just got a random urge to play The Sims. That hasn't happened in a while. So if you're not following along, move up, move down, move left, move right, WAS and D. And we're just going to go in here and replace UI up, down, left, and right with move. Go back to main scene, and then we're going to run this. It's going to come up with this whatchamajig. Fantastic, and now we're moving around. You can see our player isn't falling through the ground. Also, to get the lighting in there, we're just going to click this button here. I'm going to click this button here. So that's these two, and now they don't light up because we've got them inside our world. We're also going to reparent this to a new node, just a node, call this environment, just to keep things neat. These two here, going to reparent to a new node, node 3D. We can call this world geometry, just to keep things neat. We can move all this crap around at once, etc. So, let's actually go and name these things. So this is inbounds. We're not actually going to use these, so we're going to call that outbounds. That's just so I can tell when I've got it clicked. Right. Cool. So now we're going to go move around again. Awesome. And now obviously we don't have mouse movement at the moment because we haven't implemented that yet. I'm just going to quickly change the way that this window is set up, 1920 by 1080. Do that windowed. I'm pretty happy with that. So then we're going to go back to the code. We're going to go func ready. We're going to go set mouse mode. Input.set mouse mode, I think it is. Mouse mode captured. And then I think we're going to create a func input. Alright, and then so first we need to add a mouse sensitivity float to player And because we don't actually want to move the camera itself up and down, because we want the camera to just be at 0, 0, we need to reparent to a new node. Actually, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go camera 3D and then go Control A and then node 3D. It's going to create a node at the exact same position. And then we're going to move the node out. And then we're going to move the camera into that node. We're going to call that head, right? So then in the code, we can grab that head. And then we can go if event is input event mouse motion. Mouse motion, yep. Then head, there we go, give us the head dot rotate x negative event dot relative dot y times mouse sensitivity. And then we go head dot rotation dot x equals clamp head dot rotation dot x negative pi divided by 2 and pi divided by 2. Don't tell me. I think that just means like, I don't know. It's clamping it like up and down, right? So this still isn't going to do anything for right now because what, head isn't? Oh, rotation. Just can't spell right now. What is happening? Dude. Okay, there we go. Alright, perfect. And then we need to make the dude move left and right. So we can just go rotate y based on the event relative dot x, right? Times mouse sensitivity. That's gonna screw us around. All right, perfect. Negative event relative x. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, awesome. Now I'm walking around. It's not very smooth because we haven't done any smoothing yet. But that's good. It's looking good. I'm going to add a button into respawn. Probably just R. Then in input we can go elif event. Actually, we can't do that there. I'm eating peanuts. We're going to need to create another script on the main scene. Scripts, yeah. Whoop. Scripts main scene. Then we're going to need to get a reference of the player scene because we're going to need to be spawning this in. Basically, we need to kill the player and then bring him back to life, pretty much. When we respawn, right? So part of the player script again is going to be a timer. We'll just set it to 0.5 seconds for now, and we'll call this the ground detect. The ground detect timer. And then we can go to timeout. And then on timeout, what we can do is we can first grab in our ground detect. Get both of these here right. And then is colliding. Should be that easy. So we go if. Basically just going to nest this. Then we need some sort of variable here, which is it'd be like the last good position, right? Last good pos, vector 3 equals vector 3 to 0. We really should set that. And then I guess we could just set last good pos there, right? Equals global position. Cool, so see how that works. This is the thing, like, because the player shouldn't really have that much authority over where its own position is going to be after it dies and comes back to life, so we might have to change that at some point. But for right now, go to the main scene, func input, if event is input event key, if input dot is action just pressed, what do we want? Respawn, and respawn. But we'll create the respawn function. I don't think we want anything to come back from that, so we'll just void it. Just pass that for now. I guess the first thing we want to do is get a reference to the player, and then once we respawn it, we're basically going to take the player, cube free, and then we're going to we're going to get the last good pos equals player dot last good pos, I think. And so to see it a little bit better, what we can do is we can go class name player, and now anything that's inside here we'll be able to see from here, or not. Last good pos, maybe it needs to be an export or something like that. Last good pos var, and then this will be a vector3. Cool, player.queueFree, and then we need to create a new player. So we're going to go var new player, player equals dot instantiate, and then new player, or we'll go add child, new player, and then go new player dot global position equals last good pos. And we'll see how this goes. This might be a bit dodgy, but we'll see. Oh yeah, here we go. Last good pos of previously freed. So the other thing we've got to do is after we get a new player and the new player gets added in, we need to basically make new player equals, or player equals new player. So we're getting a new reference to what player actually is, right? So I walk over here, should be good. We'll walk over here, should be not good. So something's going on here where the position isn't being saved or updated or something like that. Go over to here. I think maybe what we've got to do is this ground detect timer. We've actually got to auto start that, so that's probably going to be the problem right there. Now, one shot would mean that the timer stops after it goes, but we want it to actually continue to keep going. So hopefully, yeah, when we respawn, we're in the same spot over here, which is good. And then if we go over into this blue area, it should probably spawn us back over there near where we crossed over, right? So if I go over here, so we shouldn't be able to be detected here. Yep, we hit respawn and then we end up back over here right before where we crossed over. Cool, so then the next thing we need to do is just detect when you're falling down, right? And then just respawn you up. So that shouldn't be too easy. It shouldn't be too hard. And then so to do that, we're gonna not do it on the process, we're gonna do it on func physics process. And we're also doing this in the main scene, by the way. If player, so first of all, there's probably going to be like frames where the player isn't valid because we're deleting it and then recreating it. So we don't want to get too confused with this. So first what we're going to do is go if is instance valid player. So if it's not valid, then it won't work, right? And then just go player dot, we'll go if player dot global position dot y is less than -10, then respawn, right? So let's see what happens here. Because we're still using that same respawn function, it should still all work the same. So this should just put us back where we were. Yep, right at the start, because we're walking through the blue area. Now if we walk through the green area, and then we jump off the edge here, it should spawn us back around here. So we jump off, and yep, perfect. Alright, you can also hit space to jump. I don't know if I told you about that. But therein lies how you do all of this 3D platformer respawn stuff with just a couple quick little Raycast detections. You can basically make any sort of geometry, and as long as it's tagged as what, number 5, or was the out of bounds of 5 on the collision layers, then we're not even going to detect it as the ground, but we'll still be able to walk over it. And the game files will be on Patreon, so if you can't be bothered typing out all of that code that I just showed you, you can download the files on Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, the person who I'm going to send a free CD key of Unaccessible to is that person on the screen. Thanks for playing. If you want to play, you can come and join the Patreon for free. So make sure you check your emails, especially if that's you. And if you know who that person is, make sure you email them and tell them that they want a key and that they should check their emails. Alright, thanks everyone. See you on the next one.